Okay, let's begin today's session. Uh, Today, I'll be completing the section one, that is engineering mathematics. In that third part, I'm going to concentrate today. So I'm going to take up the topic on specifically on probability and statistics. There may be something basic to you and some informative topics will be there. Usually, at least one or two questions will be there, which are easier, uh, that are coming under probability and statistics. Usually, a numerical problem and MCQ problem. One numerical NAT, one MCQ. Whenever NAT comes, that's numerical type comes, usually from these topics, the 2 mark question appears. That's what I observed, or at least 1 mark. At least two questions will be there from this topic, and the topics are very easy. So it is easy to score from this topic. Why I'm concentrating on this? Remember, even 1 mark or 2 mark differences, if you create, that is worth of around 10 score out of 1,000 score or ranking. If you say it counts to around 5 to 10 rank, even 1 mark difference. Okay, so that's why you need to concentrate on wherever it is possible. You should try to grab the uh, marks. So that is why I'm concentrating on the topics where you can easily score, which you should not leave out. Okay, so coming to the statistics straight away. So here it is. So the basic concepts, I'll just explain it to you. You may be knowing or you may not be remembering the topics. In whichever case it is, doesn't matter. It will be a refresher for you if you already know it. If you do not remember these things, then it will be a useful information for you. All right. So when you say averages, okay, there are two parts in statistics. One, you have averages, central tendency. Another one, dispersion. Means you have lot of values. Okay, you have large number of values in front of you which are referring to the same variable. For example, your class, if I take it, the height of all of you, it may not be same, it will be varying, but all belong to all the values. When we measure it, all the value belongs to the variable height. So it will be in centimeter, for example. So this weight, it varies, right? From one particular value, lowest minimum value to maximum value, and that difference we call it as range, minimum to maximum. Now, in that particular value, all of it put together, if I consider entire variable as one particular way of understanding it, that means I want to use that entire value, whole set of value, as one unit. If that is the case, all of that centrally it will tend towards one single value, that is middle of the value. Okay, now that you can, that averaging effect, you can call it in three different mechanisms. One we call it as mean, another median, and mode. In a common English, we say mean and average in a same equivalent way we say, but average, when you say, there are three types: mean, median, mode. Three are the different things. Mean is nothing but arithmetic average. That is, so you will have to sum up all the values divided by number of values. So that gives you the arithmetic average. We call it as mean. Another is mode. A number may appear again and again. It may repeat many times. So the mode is the one, that one of those value of the sample which repeats maximum. Okay. So whichever value repeats maximum of the time, that is mode. And one second. Now, whether it is proper voice, is it breaking or is it clear? Okay. So you have mode means the value should repeat multiple times. Same value should repeat. Median means you have to put it in a particular order, that is increasing order. Once you put it in an increasing incremental order, lowest the first value and the largest value at the end. So the middlemost value, whichever stands in the middle, that centermost value, you call it as median. So to calculate mean, it is easy and you know it already. Mode also, it is easy. The reason is that you just have to find out a large number of values. So when you calculate median, I have some problem. This kind of problem you may expect. because these kind of questions have come already. So here is a question: find the mean, median, mode, and range for the following list of values. So in this case, these are the values 13, 18, 30, like that. Some random order it is placed. So what you have to do is you have to put it in a one proper order. You can see at the bottom of the same line here, incremental order. Okay, so it is put up in a incremental order. The lowest first, largest value last. Increasing order of values. Now, if you count the number of values, there are 9 values, odd numbered, right? 9 number of values are there. It is odd numbered. So to calculate mean, you have to sum them up, add them up, and divide it by 9 values. So mean is 15. This is straight away, you know it. And if you observe it here, 13 comes maximum, 4 times appears. So mode is 13 in this case. You may encounter case where the mode, that is it may appear, two numbers may be there which may be appearing equal number of times. For example, here 13, say 13 appears 2 times, 14 also appear 2 times, right? So let me say that 13 is appearing 2 times, 14 also appears 2 times. So you have two modes, 13 and 14. There may be multi. Okay, so when you say mode, there may not be a mode at all. When is it possible? All values are unique. All 9 values what you have are unique. In that case, no mode. Okay, there is no mode at all. Then you have one mode in this case, for example, right? That is unimodal. Okay, bimodal, multimodal. So many modes may be there, 2 modes may be there, 1 mode may be there, or there is no mode at all. Then comes the median. Now here is the tricky part. This is an odd numbered value. Easy to identify the centermost, which is marked as red 14. Okay, you have to put it in an incremental order. The middlemost value, not by the value, face value of the number, it is by the value of the position. By position, you have to take the centermost value. Okay, so that is the first value, and the last is 9, ninth value. So middlemost is 5th. How do I know? First position is 1, last position is 9, 9 plus 1, 10 by 2. That gives me the middlemost position, 5. 9, 1 plus 9 by 2. So that gives me 10 by 2, 5. So 5th position value, whatever is there in the 5th position, that is the median for this set of value. Okay, now that's easy when you have odd numbered, because there is only 1 in the center. Now let me come to the right side problem where n is equal to 10. Same problem, slightly modified. I inserted some 1 or 2 values here extra over and above that. Here the mode is 13 again, no problem. But in median, in the case of median, there are 10 values. First value is 1, position is 1, last position is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11 by 2, that is 5.5. Position number 5.5 does not exist. Position 5 exists, position 6 exists. So the 5.5 comes in between the two. What you have to do is you have to take the average of face value of those two positions. So the position number 5 is 14, face value is 14. Position number 6, face value is 15. Whatever may be the value there, just note them, their face value. Take their average. Here it is 14 and 15 in this case. So you have to take the average of the two, that is 14.5. So the value, whatever you see in that particular position, you have to take it. Position is important. Identify the position first, whether it is a single unique value or there are two values. If there are two values, you have to take the average. Okay, so this is how you find out the median. Quartile means it is here in between this, between 14 and 13. Okay, so 14 will be the end value and 13 will be the first value. In between this position, that is here 13, somewhere here, third position comes, right? This is quartile 1. Median itself is quartile 2. Quartile 3 is over here. It's a position. Okay, if you consider the entire thing as 100 positions, so which value is exactly at the 25th percentile? That's quartile 1. At the 50 percentile means middlemost, quartile 2. At the 75 percentile, that is 3 4 I mean 75 percentile means over here, that is between 18 and this is 18, between 15 and 24, right? 15 and 24, between that is 18. So quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3. So 3 quartiles will come. Always remember, quartile 2 is nothing but median. Median and quartile 2 are the same. There is no difference between the two. Okay, same value, two names. So if I ask you the same question here, what is the quartile for this value, quartile 2 of this value, it is same as 14.5. It won't change. Okay. Now that is about the central tendency. Then you come across, there are two things you can mention when you take a sample value. So you have seen several values over here. Among those values, you can say there is a central tendency. First, mean you are calculating, averaging you are calculating, then whether it is spread over the values. Okay, from the center towards the end, that is end means minimum and maximum, how spread it is. Okay, whether it is spread very near to the mean, whether it is spread very on a very large scale, you would like to find out. So to calculate that, we have two things. One is standard deviation, another is standard error. Okay, equivalent, all start with the same concept, but in simple, we standard deviation, we take it as the reference first, then over using that all other values are calculated. Now when standard deviation, we generally write it as SD. Okay, the notation sometimes it is written S. There is one more, sigma, coming into picture. Sigma refers to the standard deviation of the population. S refers to the standard deviation of sample. So what is the difference between a population and a sample? Population is nothing but a very large sample for which the majority of the statistic value may not be known to you, whereas sample, a subset of population. You know about election, that is exit polls. So what they do, they cannot go to whole population. Whole population means somewhere about 50 crore or somewhere about what is the 50 crore population is there, right? 50 crores of population is there who are voters, for 40 to 50 crores approximately. That means voters are there. So the one who conducts the exit poll survey cannot reach all 40 crore or 50 crore people. That is the population. But I like to estimate the standard deviation mean of that. Not possible. I'll take sample. Sample means what? I will approach some people, maybe 1000 people, 2000 people on a particular way. I'll find out like 10 people from Udupi, 10 people from Mangalore, 10 people from Bangalore, 10 people from like some other cities. Okay. So I'll take sampling and I'll identify. That is a uniform way. Take the sample and identify. Okay. So it has got a lot of errors. Remember, this will have a lot of errors because what opinion I give, that is among those 10, may not be the opinion of remaining all 40 crore, right? The whole population may not have the same opinion. So it may differ. There may be a lot of errors. So that is why we have spread and statistics coming into picture. So the standard deviation, when you calculate, look at the equation that we have here. Standard deviation or the variance. Variance is the square of standard deviation. All right. So if you put a square here, the square root goes off. So that way also you can remember it. So sigma square or S square, that is the variance. Now, there are two parts, numerator and denominator. I'll consider it as variance. All right. So variance is sigma square. Here variance for the sample is S square. So that square root comes on this side and it becomes square. That's the way I wanted to tell you. So there is a numerator and denominator. If you look at the numerator, you have to find out the mean first. Mu is the mean of population or X bar is the mean of sample. Okay, sample has a mean and that is called X bar. Now, each value, there may be a 10 value, 15, 100, 1000, whatever may be the number of values, you have to deduct mean from the individual values. Okay, individual values you have to consider, deduct the mean, you get a difference. That difference you have to square. If there are 10 values, you will get 10 such values, right? 10 differences, each 10 values you have to square it, then sum it up. So there will be 10 values, you have to take a sum of all those 10. That is your numerator. Denominator is n minus 1. N is number of sample minus 1 if it is sample. If you're talking about a population, then it will be divided by n. Okay. Now, normally sample means when the sample size, the value of n is less than 30, we say small sample and we consider yes. If the sample size is more than 30, we consider it a standard deviation. Why? The difference is simple. The denominator n minus 1 n will be almost the same as n tends to infinity, right? As n tends to very large value, this 1 loses its importance. This -1 loses its importance. So n minus will be almost same as n. For example, 999, which is 1000 minus 1, is same as 1000, approximately similar to 1000. When it goes to the denominator, the value that it creates, that is, for example, if you have 10 divided by 999 or 10 divided by 1000, almost same, the value will remain same. So that is why the denominator, instead of n minus 1, you can write n. But that n minus 1 is very important when the value of n is small. Okay, that makes a difference. For example, 4 and 3, that makes a difference in the denominator. Okay, divided by 4, divided by 3, that may cause a large difference. All right. So variance is nothing but standard deviation square, and standard error. This is one more term. Standard error, when you calculate, this is only for the sample. Standard error is used only for the sample. Small number of samples, when you take it, you will use it. Whenever population is there, you will not use this. So standard error, when you're using, first you have to calculate standard deviation. Yes, this value you have to calculate, divided by root n. Okay, divided by root n, not just n, it is root of n, number of sample. Okay, not n minus 1, it is n, root of n, you have to take it. So if you compare, which is smaller, standard deviation or standard error, just compare it. So n is a positive integer, right? It's an integer and it is positive value, and it goes to the denominator of standard deviation. So standard deviation is always larger than the standard error. Standard error is numerically smaller than standard deviation. That you keep it in mind. Then I'll go to the next one. Yeah, here there is a problem. Just to give you an idea how this works. So you have numbers 4, 9, 11, 12, 17, 5, 8, 12, 14. So these values are there. 9 sample size, 9. Now you have to calculate the mean of it. Mean, you know how to calculate. That is, sum it up and divided by 2. That gives you 10.222. This value, you get it. Then for every value of x, I have to calculate difference x minus x bar and square it. So I'm supposed to calculate standard deviation and standard error here. So I'll calculate the difference, then I'll square it. How did I do it? All the values I have considered and taken the mean, which is 10.222. Then each value, 4 minus 10.222, I'll get a difference. Square it, and that will be 38.7. I'll take 9 now, next value. 9 minus 10.222, square it. I get 1.49. Similarly, I have to do for all the values. Last value, 14 minus 10.222. That difference, I have to square it. And that gives me around 14.3. This is the individual difference squares. Okay, squares of individual differences. Then I have to sum it up, add it. Okay, all the values I have to add it, and it comes to 139. 139 divided by n minus 1. N minus 1 is 8. N is 9 there. So it is n minus 1, 8. So that gives me 4.168. Standard deviation is 4.168. And standard deviation value 4.168 divided by root n. N is 9. It will be 3. Root n is 3. So it gives me 1.389. You can see that standard deviation and standard error, there is a relationship between, that is root n times, right? Root n times. So root n times standard error will be equal to standard deviation. Got it? So why I'm telling this? You may have a problem. You may anticipate some problem here, that number of samples is given, standard deviation is given, or standard error is given. Calculate the other one. So you should know the relationship between standard deviation, number of sample size, and standard error. Okay, the last line, there are three terms in the equation. SE is equal to SD by root n. That relation, based on that relation, you can have a simple numerical, one more question. That is NAT type question. Okay, so you may be asked, find out the number of sample size. SC and SD are given to you. Can anyone tell me what will be the number of size, sample size? N is equal to what if SE is equal to SD? Can anyone answer? If SE is equal to SD, what is the sample size? Here I can see at least 4 students, 3 or 4 students who attended my previous applied biostatistics class. I made a mention of this. I didn't expect this answer from these people. One is wrong answer. I made a mention of exactly similar statement there. Not the same problem, but conceptually similar, something similar to this I made a mention, if you remember. Can you find out, if you have one sample, can you find out mean? Can you find out standard deviation? Think. Can you find out standard deviation and can you find out mean if there is only one sample? It's impossible. If there is a one sample, you cannot do this mean. You cannot find out standard deviation because standard deviation denominator is n minus 1 there, right? Is it possible? Anyone? Right? So if you have one sample, it is not possible to calculate the standard deviation, first thing. So it is impossible to have SE is equal to SD. Am I right? Do you understand now? SE is equal to SD. If I say that N will be equal to 1, that is correct. But can you find out SC and SD if there is only one sample? That's primary thing. That's preliminary. Preliminary before your SC and SD. To calculate SD, you need to have minimum 2 sample. So if there is a 2 requirement, sample size 2, then obviously SC and SD cannot be the same. So there is no instance, there is no chance that SC will be equal to SD. Do you understand? So there, I need not give you any numerical, just asking you a simple question. Okay. So it's like what are the, I mean, MCQ type question. MCQ type question. What is the sample size where SC is equal to, when SC is equal to SD? I'll give you some 3 options there, 4 options there. One of the option is N is equal to 1. Another option not possible or something equivalent word is there, not applicable, not something. Okay. So if you remember only the equation, all of you would possibly would answer N is equal to 1, which is wrong, because SC is equal to SD cannot happen since N cannot be 1. It should be more than 1 to calculate SC and SD itself. In that case, the answer will be not applicable. So this is the kind of twisted thing based on your basic knowledge. There is no requirement of equation, but knowing the equation, you may tend to make a mistake. Do you understand? So understand that SC and SD are dependent upon the sample size. On the other hand, just because equation is there, you cannot calculate N. N cannot be equal to 1. That's the basic thing that you need to remember. Okay, fine. I'll go ahead now. Okay, distributions. So under probability, you have sample distributions. Sample distribution in the sense individual values, what you get. Okay. So each variable, sometimes it's a continuous variable, sometimes it is a discrete variable. Okay, sometimes it's a continuous variable or a discrete variable. Discrete variable means you have limited number of possibilities or outcomes. Okay, for example, I'll take probability density function for binomial distribution. For a binomial distribution, there are only 2 outcomes. For example, gender. Gender is a binomial, follows a binomial distribution. For the class, the entire class, if I take the sample of gender, male and female, so there are only 2 outcomes. And if I take any other example, maybe like, are you writing GATE exam? Okay, your answer is yes or no. Only 2 options you will have, either yes, applied or not, other question. So that follows a binomial theorem. There is no other answer for it. It's not continuous. Now, when you say binomial theorem, there are 2 outcomes. The probability of some occurrence is larger. Okay, sufficiently finite enough. You know that probability value is always between 0 to 1. It's not less than 0, more than 1, right? It's in between 0 to 1. Now, the probability density function, when you say, it is the probability of each event occurrence. Means if I consider one of your classmate and make a probability that, what is the probability that this particular student, I do not know about the student, It is a hypothetical situation. Before I ask him, if I ask him and he answers, that is fixed, right? So it's like I do not know the student. I am not in touch with the particular student. I want to make a hypothesis in a hypothetical sense, whether the student has attempted or whether the student has applied for GATE exam or not. Okay, I would like to make a assumption. So what probability I may end up with? So that kind of probability is a finite value. It's not a very small value. It may be a larger value. So that goes under binomial distribution. Poisson distribution is also a type of binomial distribution, but the difference is, for a Poisson distribution, the possibility of given occurrence is very low. That means the probability of that occurrence is very, very low. So something like you get it in disorders. You say that this particular chances is 1 in 1,000. This particular disease is very rare. 1 in 1 lakh, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, right? So that 1 in that 1 divided by some number you get, that is the probability. That is the probability of occurrence, and all those go under Poisson distribution. It's again a subsection of binomial distribution. Okay. So it's a special case under binomial, which one? Poisson distribution. Now, the two examples what I took here, gender or yes or no kind of thing, they are all having dichotomous. That means two options are there, yes or no kind of thing. There is no number. Okay. Whereas there are some variables, for example, concentration, or for example, mark, or some values, numerical values, which are continuous. Anything could be the outcome. Okay, any outcome you can have. So all these fall under a continuous variable, and they follow normal distribution. So normal distribution follows, in fact, there are two things here. One is called as PDF, another called as CDF. PDF stands for probability density function. CDF stands for cumulative density function. Okay, cumulative probability density function. So cumulative means starting from zero, previous small value, till now, what is the probability. To make you understand, fifth semesters may have little difficulty when I explain you this one. I'll try to explain you here, but seventh semesters will be able to appreciate what I'm telling. PDF is something equivalent to what you otherwise I can tell you in a simple other way around. You know about frequency distribution. There are two types, if you remember. One is general frequency, another is cumulative frequency. I hope everyone knows about that. Frequency bar chart you would have done, all of you. Frequency bar chart, individual values, you have drawn a frequency table, bars, right? Now cumulative means you will have to go keep on adding previous value, present, next, it keeps on adding, and it always increases. The example I was about to give you was E curve and F curve. You do it in RTD. The E curve and C curve in RTD, residence time distribution analysis in reaction engineering, that you do is, the C curve and E curve that you do is probability distribution function. Whereas the F curve, okay, F curve what you prepare is the cumulative PDF. All right. Now, here for a continuous probability, we use cumulative. For binomial and Poisson, it is PDF. Okay, probability density function. So the probability density function in a normal distribution for individual values, it is 0. You won't understand what I'm telling you right now. I'll come to that particular point. When I show the graph, I'll tell you. This is just a general concept behind three distributions, which I wanted to show you. Now let me go one by one. How to do the calculation? These kind of problems appear each year. Each year you come across these problems. Very simple to calculate. I'll give you one problem at the end. You'll find that the problem looks complicated, but it's actually easy. It's so easy. Okay, problem looks complicated. That's the best part of GATE. Always the questions the look of it is complicated. When you pen down and solve it, it has nothing, and you do not even require calculator to do the calculation. Sometimes you do not even require a calculator to do it. In mind itself, you can do the calculation. Okay, because all things like cut, cancel, finally ends up with 1 by 4, 2 by 4 kind of things. Okay, so that's why they give you one paper and pen to solve it on paper. You do not require you even do not require some calculators for that. Okay, now you have a binomial experiment and n trials are there. There are n trials. N trial means experimental conditions you have. Okay, n values, out of which x is the success. You have to define your success. That's most important. According to you, something may be a failure or success. It doesn't mean here. Success means, the meaning of success here is not literal English success. The success meaning here is what you want, your choice. That is the success. Okay. For example, in terms of contamination, you know microbiology, you know about contamination. Okay. Now, what is your requirement? I can modify accordingly. If contaminating the plate is your requirement, then success is how many plates are contaminated. That is my success. If your analysis is based on how many are not contaminated, then my success will be not non-contaminated plates. So what do I require? You identify my requirement, you have to identify, and that will be defined as success. Okay. Then the remaining is the other way around, is the failure. We don't say about failures here, we say success. Okay. Only success will be considering it. So when I look at the problem here, I'll show you one or two places there. So the probability of occurrence of a set of values, a set of, not one, not individually. We generally know the probability for one single value, one single occurrence. What is the probability? We'll get to know. That is P. Okay. Now, if I have combinations of X number of such events, if I combine them together in combination, what will be the total probability? That I want to note it. That is the binomial theorem I'll be using. Remember, this will be used only when you have yes or no kind of thing. Discrete dichotomous variables, when you have, you'll be making use of it. So what is the calculation? It is NCX. NCX combination, you know, NCX, you'll write it multiplied by P power X. All this X is an integer, N is an integer. Okay. N and X are integers. This P is a probability value, ranges from 0 to 1. The value P ranges from 0 to 1. Okay. N and X are integer. So NCX, N total number of event, how many event your choice, probability power X into 1 minus P. You can say it's failure. If you call P as success, probability of success, 1 minus P is probability of failure. 1 minus P. Maximum is 1, right? Maximum is 1 total. So if 50% is 50% chance is that it is successful, remaining 50% is failure. That is the meaning of it. Power N minus X. You can see here, it is X here for success. For failure, it is remaining N minus X. Total is N. So N minus X. Okay. So this is the equation you will have to make use of. So here is a question. Consider an unfair coin. The probability of getting heads is 0.6. That is, okay. Consider an unfair coin. Okay, I'll come to this point. Probability of getting heads is 0.6. Do you understand the meaning of this one sentence, two sentences here? Unfair coin means it is it's a biased coin. When you come across a unbiased, when you come across the word unbiased, that means it is having an equal chance for success and failure. Means probability will be 0.5. That will be unbiased. If you come across the word unbiased, means it has got a 50-50 chance of passing and failing. Whereas here it is given one word unfair, means it is a biased coin. It has got a biasing for something extra. So probability of getting heads is 0.6, not 0.5. It's 0.6. So P is 0.6. If you toss this coin twice, so my event is twice now. What is the probability that the first or the second toss is heads? Okay. So tossing the coin, only two outcomes are there. You will get either heads or tails. Heads, I'll call it as P. Why do I call heads as success here? What is the question? Look at this. What is the probability that the first or the second toss is heads? It is asked in the question. Your interesting point here is, the point of interest here is getting heads. That is your success. Okay. So that is why I call it as P. Even the probability of getting heads is also given P here. That is 0.6. It is in the same line. So that is my success, and failure will be getting tails, which is 1 minus P. Now, probability of getting a 1 for one particular coin, it is 0.6. N is equal to how many times I'm tossing the coin? 2 times. It is tossed 2 times. Okay. So in 2 times, how many times I will get one, only one heads? How many times I'll get both the heads? I will have to find out. Okay. My occurrence, that is event, chances of occurring that event is X. X many times I get heads. There are two cases given, this or that. right? So that the first or second toss is heads. Okay, so that is toss should be first head or second head, any one of it. So that is x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 2. Remember, it is or, it is given or here, means this also may happen or this also may happen. So I have to consider both the situations together. That is why I'm adding plus. I'm making a plus. Okay, this or, since it is coming as or here, I have to consider this as well as this. This is also okay for me. This is also okay for me. That is the meaning. Now, individually, when I calculate x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 2, I have to put the values. That is, in one case, x is equal to 1. In another case, x is equal to 2. In this equation, ncx p power x into 1 minus p power n minus x. That equation, I'm putting those values. So, for x is equal to 1, it is 0.48. For x is equal to 2, it is 0.3x36. I have to add them and it gives me 0.84. So, I'm not going by the substitution values and all. You can go through that later. My focus sub point here is the last value. So I get, that means there is a 84% chance that I get heads for the first instance or second chance. First time when I toss it or second time I toss it, I get heads 84% of the time. There is a high probability that I get, what you call heads, right? So this is the way it has to be calculated using the equation. So there is one more problem later at the end, I'll get it. Now, the second one is Poisson distribution. Poisson distribution, small modification in that equation. It's an exponential term here. E power minus mu, mu power x divided by x factorial. Terms what we used earlier remain the same. Now, there is one more thing I have brought in here, which is applicable with the Poisson distribution, as well as these terms equation what I mentioned here in the two boxes are applicable to the previous slide, binomial as well as Poisson. You may expect some question on this also. So you know about mu, that is mean, as well as standard deviation of set of values. So for a binomial distribution, for a Poisson distribution, you can find out mean and standard deviation. How to calculate? Mu will be equal to n into p, number of samples or number, the size multiplied by the probability of that occurrence. Okay. In my previous problem, n was is equal to 2 and probability was 0.6. So it is 2 into 0.6 is the mu in that case, previous problem. Variance will be equal to npq. You have to multiply with the q. That is mu into that q you have to multiply. How it has come, you will not worry about it. That's the variance. Okay. So if you require a standard deviation, you have to take a square root of it. NPQ you have to find out, that is variance. Take a square root of that. Remember, P and Q in this case are finite. When you come to the Poisson distribution, P tends to 0, very small value. Obviously, 1 minus P will be equal to Q. So that is why Q tends to 1, not infinity. Q tends to 1. Maximum value of probability is 1. Okay, so it tends to 1. Now, when you take a product of this, that is NP, okay, large sample size will be very large in this case, and probability value is very small. So NP will be finite, and that will be equal to mu as well as variance. This is the difference here. Okay, so here mu will be equal to NP, which is also equal to variance. How it has happened? Q is tending towards to 1. It's almost 1. So if you multiply NP with 1, it will remain as NP only. So it is the equation still, it is NPQ there, but Q tends to 1, right? Q will be almost equal to 1. So that's Q, it's negligible, and you'll be taking NP. So in the case of Poisson distribution, mean and variance are equal. Binomial distribution, they are not equal, they are different. Okay. So there is a problem based on this. Birth in a hospital occur randomly at an average rate of 1.8 births per hour. What is the probability of observing 4 births in a given hour at the hospital? Okay, so the birth rate, that is on an average it is given. That means it is the mean of occurring something, and birth occurring per hour. It's not that it's a regular daily event. It's a rare event, you can say, right? You can use Poisson distribution in this case. So you can say mu is equal to 1.8. That's the average value. Now I have to consider 4 births, chances of getting 4 babies born in a particular 1 hour, right? So that will be the x. That is the value of x. So I'll be using this equation, e power minus mu and mu power x mu and x, only mu and x are required. You can see here, only mu and x are required, and I can calculate. And you see that the chances of getting this particular instance is 7.23%. Let the 7.2%, it's very rare. 7% chance, it's very small, right? Most important thing always you have to remember is this probability p value will be between 0 to 1. The value of p, whatever answer you get here, p, that will be in between 0 to 1. It should not be any other answer. It should not be less than 0. It should not be more than 1 when you calculate p. Any equation you use it. So that care you have to take, because you may end up with some answer which is negative and you'll have to reconsider it carefully. Okay. So here there is a problem. I think I'll skip this one. You can read through this later, which is equivalent to using the previous problem. And then is the normal distribution. This is one important one. So I'll not go through the entire explanation of what is normal distribution. Normal distribution follows one equation which only for representation purpose we use it. We will not use this equation to calculate as we used this equation. Probability of Poisson, probability for binomial. We use the equation. Very similar to that, you also have a probability density function for normal distribution, but we do not use them. Okay. Instead, we do a standardization of that normal distribution. Then we use the table. Those graphs, we plot it, and I mean, it's ready-made plot and tables are there. We make use of that. Okay. So we do something called a standardization. That is, you have a sample which has come from a population. That population may be having a mean of mu and a standard deviation sigma. Okay, mu and sigma. Now, for that sample, and individual values is x. Individual value of that is x. So if you deduct mu from x and divide it by sigma, standard deviation, this is nothing but standardization. Why we have to do the standardization? For example, the concept of standardization, let me just explain you one example. Now, I may conduct the examination on any grounds. Like, for example, I may conduct a class test and I may conduct it out of 50. Another class test, I may conduct it out of 25. Any number, any value I can conduct. Accordingly, you will get the mark. But finally, what I have to submit is on a percentage scale, right? So I do convert it. How do I convert? Out of 40 this much, out of 100 how much? That way I convert it. But here, it is not the linear conversion that needs to be done. It is standardization. Standardization in the sense you have the values of mu and sigma, individual values of mu and sigma for a given variable. They have a central tendency, they have a dispersion. What you would like to do is, whatever may be the value that you get out of your experiment, you want to modify it in such a way that its mean is final mean. Once you standardized it, after standardizing, it follows a particular pattern for which mean is 0, standard deviation is 1. Mean is 0, standard deviation is 1. That is standard normal probability density function. That is for the normal distribution. Standardized, you can say. Okay. What is the advantage or use of it? This particular normal distribution follows a Gaussian curve like this. This is the example that I can explain you. Okay, why we are doing it. So you have a Gaussian curve. I might have conducted it out of some 50 mark or something. I get a Gaussian curve like this. Another example, when I do it, I may do it out of 25. I may do it out of 1000. I may do it any value. Each and every time I get a graph looking similar, but their x-axis will be different. Now, if I have to compare those 2, 3, 4 cases, different cases, their x-axis will be different, but they look alike. If I have to do some statistical analysis, each and every time I require a table which is particularly specific to that particular x-axis value. It will be difficult for me. So what do? I do a standardization, that is normalization. How? I'll find out the mean. In this case, example, green colored chart, mean is 1010. Standard deviation, I do not know how much. I assume that it's around 20. Standard deviation may be 20 for this case. Mean is 1010. Okay. So what do? Is I use the mean and standard deviation of that value, and for each value, that is x-axis, many values are there, right? For each value of x-axis x, I make a conversion and redraw blue colored graph. Now, if you see it, mean is 0, standard deviation is plus minus 1 there, this side and that side, right? So whatever may be the green colored chart, what you see, whatever may be my actual value, I am converting it so that I get a bell chart for which the mean is always 0, standard deviation is plus or minus 1, this side and that side. So I can make use of a table representing this. I can have a standard value. Whenever you statistical analysis has to be done, I can easily evaluate it. So those who are in the 7th semester, for you to understand this concept, you prepare a C curve, RTD distribution, right? Residence time distribution in kinetics lab or reaction engineering. So you have a C curve, which is equivalent to that green colored graph. Then you convert it. In fact, you are normalizing it. How do you normalize there? You divide it by the area under the curve. Then you normalize. Then you get E curve, which is blue colored curve. Okay. So what is the difference you get there? C curve to E curve. Actually, it is the y-axis changes. The y-axis will become probability in the case of E and will be the concentration in the case of C curve. That is actually standardization or normalization from C curve to E curve. All right. So an equivalent concept in statistics, I just explained it to you. Now, the beauty of this bell-shaped curve, this is called as Gaussian curve. You should know the name also, Gaussian curve, okay, or bell-shaped curve. This particular thing, in the next few slides, I'll give you the property and all explanations on this, which will be useful for you to solve the problems. Okay, now you can see that the mean is 0 always. Now I'm going to concentrate only on this. Let me concentrate only on this standard normal distribution. Whatever may be the values given to you, doesn't matter. Find out mu, find out sigma for that set of value. Each value, use this formula and convert it. So once you're converted, all my explanation remains same, whatever may be your input data. Okay. Now this value 0, that is the mean. Standard deviation plus or minus 1 here, 2 standard deviation plus or minus 2, 3 standard deviation plus or minus 3 on the other side. It is spread. You can see that there is a symmetry across the mean. Across this mean 0, there is a symmetry on the two sides. If you count the whole area under the curve, if you count it as 100%, there is a 50% area on the left side of 0, 50% of area on the right side of the 0. So it exactly marks the middle of the two areas. I mean, whole area. In the case of normal distribution, standard normal distribution, mean, median, mode, all are same and equal to 0. Okay. So my simple question there, what is the mean of a standard normal distribution? What is the median? What is the mode? Anything can be asked. All answer is 0. Okay. So even standard deviation, you can ask, what is the one standard deviation value? That's plus or minus 1 here. So total area is 1, mean is 0, standard deviation is 1. Probability density function at a given point. Remember, at a given point here, exactly this value, probability density function of occurring one single event is 0. One single event is 0. Okay. It is because it's much more beyond the Poisson distribution. In Poisson distribution, we say 1 in 1000, right? Here, infinite values are there. After plus 1, very next value is 1.00001, 1.0002, like that it is. Very minor. You can have infinite number of values on the x-axis here, each event. Okay, its occurrence will be very minimal, 1 by infinity, you can say. It's equivalent to 1 by infinity occurrence. So individual value probability is 0. Whereas occurrence up to that from minus, this is minus infinity. We call this side as minus infinity. On this positive side, we call it as plus infinity. So minus infinity up to a current particular value, that probability is the area under the curve. Calculate the area under the curve. That will be the probability of occurrence, all that is behind it. That is up to minus 1, minus infinity to minus 1. What is the probability? This entire thing I have to calculate, area under the curve. So finding out area under the curve is a little difficult over here. So that is why we have tables. So we calculate like this, minus infinity to a given z. This is called as z. X-axis values are called as z value. And it leads to z distribution. So probability of occurring, you can see the last line written here, probability of occurring minus infinity to z. Variable is z, small z is a variable. capital Z is a number like -1, -1.25, like that, one single number. How did I get this capital Z? Like this. I have modified my actual required value, I have modified and got that. So area below the curve from -infinity to this Z, a particular value, I have to calculate. To calculate the area, it is difficult using the graph. So that is why we have a table and called as standard, standard normal curve or Z distribution table. Now that Z distribution table, I'll see it in the next slide. Before that, I'll show you one more thing. The area under the whole curve, -infinity to +infinity, is 100%. From mean to the left and right, the middlemost one standard deviation for Z is equal to -1, Z is equal to +1. Okay, Z is equal to -1 to Z is equal to +1. Within this range, if you find out the area, it is 68%. This is one of the most important point. This entire slide and one more slide will come. These two slides will be the most important point for you, because your questions will be based on this. Absolutely based on this. Okay, basic thing that you need to know or remember. So for standard deviation -1 to +1, area under the curve is 68%. For -2 to +2, area under the curve is 95%. For area under the curve from -3 to +3, it is 99.7%. Okay. To be frank, it is not 95 absolutely. It is 95.6%. 0.6%, we just omit it out, 95. You might have come across, that is those who are in biostatistics, applied biostatistics. So you are already aware alpha is equal to 0.05, we take it. That is confidence interval 95%, we take it. Why 95%? It is because -2 to +2. We consider two standard deviation in our probability analysis calculations. We calculate for mu ±2 standard deviation. Okay, so all the values, this entire value, where do they fall? Mu ±2, that is ±2. So within this region, if it falls, it is 95%. If it falls within this region, it is 68%. Within the ±3 standard deviation, if it falls, 99.7% area. So what do you mean by this? We generally do not see whether it falls. Sometimes we see whether it doesn't fall. So what is the probability that it doesn't fall within this? 95% chance that it is within this. So there is a 5% chance that it doesn't fall within this. What is the meaning of this? It may be a particular value of occurrence may be between -2 to -infinity, +2 to +infinity. So put together it is 5%, right? Total is 100. From -2 to +2 it is 95%. So here unshaded area where it may not fall, the individual value occurrence of a particular event may not be possible is on the other side of it. You have two tails, tail 1, you have another tail, two tails. This side 2.5%, this side you have 2.5%, total 5%. Okay, there is a 2.5% this side, 2.5% this side, total 5. Okay, so this is how you calculate Z distribution table. So you have a probability required. This is only for your understanding. As far as I understand, you may not get questions on Z distribution table because you will not be given Z distribution table. Okay, but why do you have to learn? This previous slide, what I told you, it is highly useful. So this particular table, I'll go through. I'll not explain too many things, only for your understanding. In case if some problem comes very similar to this, it will be helpful for you. That's why. Okay, some logical analysis, if you do it, it will be useful for you. So the probability of occurrence between these two values, x falling between 24 to 54. 54 is here, 24 is here, for which mu is 45, standard deviation is given 12. What do? I have to normalize it. How do I normalize? You can see here, x minus mu by sigma. There are two values of z. One is 24, another is 54. For equivalent to 24, the value of z, standard normal value, is minus 1.75 after conversion. Equivalent to 54, after conversion, the equivalent value is 0.75. In other words, this is my actual graph. Like this, I will get infinite number of graphs for each example. Now, using this conversion method, x minus mu by sigma, I have standardized it. I'll get a graph like this. Whenever I standardize, remember, always the mean will be 0, plus or minus 1 sigma, plus or minus 2 sigma. This graph will be standard, and I can refer the standard distribution table, Z distribution table. So the question here is, in this case, what is the probability of occurrence between these two? Means area under the curve, these two lines. That is from minus 1.75 to plus 0.75 here. Okay, between these two values, what is the area that I want to find out? Okay, so how do I calculate? I calculate area, the entire area. This is very difficult. Remember, your Z distribution table always gives you a value starting from minus infinity till a particular value. In between value, if you have to calculate, you just tell me this, just observe this carefully. Minus infinity, move in the positive direction. Wherever you mark it, area under the curve is available in the Z distribution. But I want only this a small slice. Okay, so what do I have to do? Starting from minus infinity till minus 1.75, this is A, area under the curve. I'll mark it as A value. Okay, some letter, let me give it A. Minus infinity up to 0.75, this area is B. Okay, of this B, I do not want A. What should I do? I have to calculate the area A. I have to calculate the whole area over here. This is B. Then B minus A, if I do it, I'll get area of only this shaded part. Right? So I have to do B minus A. This area I have to deduct from the whole area minus infinity to 0.75. So this is what is done. Okay, the whole bigger area is 0.7734. The small area here is 0.0401. So if you deduct it, 0.7333, that means 73.33% area is in the shaded region. That is the meaning. Okay, so how do I get these values? 0.7734, 0.0401, how did I get it? So there is a Z distribution table for the minus side and for the plus side. Okay, so I just cut and shown you. For example, my value is Z is equal to minus previous one. Okay, you can see here minus 1.75, right? Here it is minus 1.75. How do I get it? Minus, okay, it's not seen in this one. There is a, it's continuing. Okay, I have shown only the small piece of that table. Let me say I want minus 2.71. Minus 2.71 is the Z value. Minus 2.7 is here. 0.1 here. If I combine this, 0.0034, this is my value. This value represent Z is equal to minus 2.71. So 0.0034 is the area under the curve, Z curve, starting from minus infinity till minus 2.71. So like that I can go up to minus 2.79. Next value is minus 2.8 or minus 2.6 on the other side, right? So you can have any number of values. Very similar to that, you have it on the positive sides. Okay, up to plus infinity. In fact, you don't get plus infinity, plus 3 you get it. So you can see that at 0, it is exactly 0.5. At 0, it is exactly 0.5. 50% area is covered before 0. And 50% area after area 0. You can see that it is increasing order. You go through here, it is increasing 0.8133 last value. Still goes on up to 1. Maximum is 1. Now the point here is this table, only for your understanding, I have shown you. I doubt that you may get any questions on this exactly on this table. But conceptually, it's better to understand so that you know this. Now, this slide, you can mark it as an important one. So 68% area falls within minus 1 to plus 1. Minus 2 to plus 2, you get area 95.6%. You can roughly, you can say 95% also. If required as 95%, you can just make use of minus 2 and plus 2. Otherwise, you can say 95.6%. Exact value for 95% is Z is equal to minus 1.96 plus 1.96. Okay, it is minus 1.96 and this side it is plus 1.96 for the exact area of 95%. For easiness of calculation, we take minus 2 and plus 2. You can take. In GATE, you can take. It is allowed. I have seen solution, some solution schemes and all I have seen. Answer with the plus 2 and minus 2 matches their key answer. So you can take plus 2 and minus 2. You need not worry about 1.96. All right. There is something interesting thing that later I'll tell you. 99.7% is the area when you take minus 3 to plus 3. Okay. So which one to select when? You need to understand this area. So this area, from where did I get it? Can anyone tell me? How did I get 68%? Can anyone answer? How did I get this 68%? Look at the graph. I have the graph in front of you. How did I get? What is the meaning of 68%? Here 68% is area under the curve from minus infinity to plus 1 minus area under the curve from minus infinity to minus 1. This white area here. This area I have to minus from this big area. There are two areas I told you earlier, B and A, B minus A. When I do that B from the standard distribution table minus this area A, I get this shaded area, which is 68%. So in the Z distribution table, where did I have to see? I had to see plus 1 and minus 1. Two values I had to see. Like this. I don't have the value exactly here. For example, this is the plus 1, right? So let me say this is the plus 1 value, sorry, minus 1 value, and here you get the plus 1 value somewhere here, right? So that plus 1 value, what you get, and minus 1 value, what you get, you have to take the difference between the two. That will be exactly equal to 68% or 0.68. Okay, 0.68, you get it. Fine. So let's go ahead. So there are 2-3 problems now remaining. I'll quickly go through that. 68% of the marks in a test are between 51 and 64. This is a question. Assuming this data is normally distributed, what are the mean and standard deviation? 68% of the marks is, this is the clue, normal distributed. 68% of the marks in a test are distributed between 51 and 64. That means 68% of the mark. This graph is not given, so you should come to your mind. Okay. So normally distributed means automatically your mind, it should blink this one, this graph. Normal distribution, as soon as you see this word, this graph should come into your picture. Okay. So for plus or minus 1, it is 68%. That means this minus 1, this particular value represents 51. Here plus 1 is indicative for 64 because it's clearly given. 68% of the marks in a test are between 51 to 64. This is the range. So the mean should be in between this. It's a what you call distributed. What do you call that? Equally, right? Across this midline, it's distributed equally. So from the midpoint here, this value should be equally distant. Equally distant means mean should be equally distant from this end to this end. That is, mean is between 51 and 64, which is 64 plus 51 by 2, 57.5. So this 0, standard normal distribution is 0, equivalent to the mean 57.5. Now standard deviation. 68% falls within one standard deviation, right? It falls within one standard deviation. So the difference between these two will calculate. So the difference between these two, that is 64 minus 51, up to here, this is equivalent to 64, this is equivalent to 51. The difference between these two equivalent to one standard deviation one side, one standard deviation on the other side. So total 2, right? One on this side, one on this side, plus or minus SD means 2 times SD it is. So 2 times SD will be equal to this difference. That is 13. So standard deviation will be 6.5. Mean is 57.5. Standard deviation is 6.5 in this case. All right. So this is how you can calculate. And you see that we used the normal distribution. We solved using the Z distribution concept, but we did not make use of standard distribution Z table. That Z table what I showed you, we did not make use of. Whereas we made use of this concept, 68%, 1 SD, mean. All right. So you can do the calculation. This kind of questions you can expect. So I have one more numerical here. The blue colored one is a question. The fresh tea company pack tea in bags marked as 250 gram. So standard value is 250 gram. A large number of packs of tea were weighed. Large number means many samples they have taken. They weighed it. After weighing, each it is supposed to be 250. Each is supposed to be 250 gram, but it won't be. Small variation will be there. So what they did, they calculated the mean and standard deviation, which is to be calculated as 255 gram mean, 2.5 gram as the standard deviation. Assuming this data normally distributed, what percentage of packs are underweight? Underweight means what? A percentage of tea bags will be less than 250 or minimal value. Okay, some values of minimum should be there, less than that. Okay, so mu will be 250. Why? You expect it to be 250, expected value. Whole population, all your tea bags should have been 250. Millions of tea bags will prepare, all should be 250 gram. But you have taken sample, the mean of that x bar. Okay, I'll say x bar or x here. So in this my equation, x is equal to 255, standard deviation is 2.5. So I'll calculate z value. When I calculate z value, what do I get? 255 minus 250 x minus mu divided by 2.5. So I get 2. So what is the meaning of 2? Z is equal to 2. This entire zone 255 and 2.5 what I'm getting is within the zone of minus 2 to plus 2, the value of z. Okay, the value of z is equal to 2. It means I am reaching over here plus standard deviation z is equal to 2, right? So z value is equal to 2. On the other hand, it is minus 2. All my 250 samples that I have taken over here, large number of sample packs with the mean and standard deviation, all these sample fall within minus 2 to plus 2. The meaning is this. Okay, within this zone, how much the area? Minus 2 to plus 2. It will be 95%. 95% of my all samples will be falling within this. There is a possibility that 5% are lesser than, lesser or more than that. More than this value or less than this value. What is the chance? Half of it will be less, half of it will be more. So the more we call it as overweight, the lesser value we call it as underweight. So there is a 2.5% chance that it is underweight. 2.5% chance is that it is overweight. So the underweight possibility is 2.5%. Now, if you do not understand the concept of mirroring this side and that side, breaking that 5% into two pieces, two tails of 2.5% and 2.5%, if you do not remember this, did not understand this, you end up answering this as 5% underweight, which is wrong. Okay, so it is 2.5% this side, you have 2.5% on the other side, two sides of it. Okay, so that's why I told you normal distribution mirroring effect. That is why zero is important. Across the zero, you have the mirror. Whatever you have this side, same thing will be on the other side. And you talk about the standard deviations. Okay, this is one problem. So look at the problem, look at the solution. Isn't it? Look now, once you have read the problem for the first time and you read it, it looks complicated. Something you may not be able to solve it or difficult. But when you understand the concept, if you see it, do you require any calculator? Look at the solution that I have written there. You do not require any calculator. 250 minus 255 minus 255 divided by 2.5, that is 2. So to do all this calculation, you do not require any calculator. In your mind itself, you can do the calculation. Only thing required here is the conceptual understanding, basic fundamental logic. That's it. Okay, once you understood the logic, you can solve it yourself easily. This is what I have been telling you. Very big equations, all complicated things, calculation doesn't work out here. Logic, concept, what is given in the problem, search within the problem, within the question you have some answers. Okay, so that's what we should be able to put it in a single line, the way we want it. Okay, you will be able to answer it. Okay, next one topic is there, that is correlation analysis. Quickly I'll go through it. I'll not explain too many things here. So don't worry about the equation that is given on the top here, covariance and all those things. Those are the standard equations that is generally used. Third equation, I would like to bring it to your notice. Why we do the correlation analysis? Because we have two continuous data, X and Y. All of you have done calibration chart. Calibration, how did you do it? You have concentration on one side, you have optical density on the other side, whether they are linearly related or not. That means as you increase the concentration, your optical density also increases, right? So who told this? Beer-Lambert. So they proposed the equation, and before that they did in fact, statistically if they had done, they would have been called as correlation analysis. Okay, they correlate neatly. How do we say that? So you have X concentration, you have Y optical density. So you have a series of values for X is corresponding Y values. Remember, they are paired. X and Y are paired. A series of X values corresponding Y you have. Remember, both are different in unit and number. Numerically and unit wise, both are different. Okay. One is concentration, one is optical density. Now, for a set of values of X, you can calculate X bar, mean. You can calculate for each value, you can find out the difference X minus X bar. I'll call it as capital X, the difference. Similarly, for each value of Y, you can calculate, for a set of Y values, you can calculate a Y bar, mean. The difference y minus y bar you can calculate, and capital Y I'll call it. Now based on this x and y, using this equation, summation of xy, square root of sigma x square, sigma y square equation, don't worry, with the problem I'll explain you this. So use the equation to find out the R value. This R value is very important for us. That is called as Pearson correlation coefficient. Also we call it as Pearson product moment correlation. This method, product moment correlation, and this R is called as correlation coefficient, Pearson correlation coefficient. What is the importance of it? If you get R is equal to plus 1, the two variables x and y are highly positive correlated. If you get minus 1, then highly negative correlation. In other words, inverse. We call it as inverse, right? Forward and inverse relation. X directly proportional to y, x inversely proportional to y. That's the way it is. If you get 0, middle, somewhere in between, then it is no correlation. If you get in between 0 to plus 1, 0 to plus 1, in that order, if you get it, it's a positive correlation. If you get 0 to minus 1, it is negative correlation. And 0.5, around 0.5, plus or minus 0.5, you can call it as moderately correlated. Moderate, not high, moderate. So the maximum value is plus 1, minimum value is minus 1. So R ranges from minus 1 to plus 1. That's the important thing, range. So as R approaches 0, either from minus 1 or plus 1, correlation reduces. So the chances of correlation reduces. So it is less correlated, you can see. Okay. If any two data, if you see they are non-linear, if they are non-linearly related, curve, there, then R will be equal to 0. That means there is no correlation at all. Remember, this R measures linear correlation, straight line, linear correlation only. That is why your calibration chart we draw straight line, only linear, not non-linear. Okay, here how it looks like. Sometimes I've seen the graphs are given, they have asked you the question. This answer what is there, that those could be the question. It is positive correlation. You can see x and y, x-axis and y-axis. As x increases, y also increases. You can see that positive slope. Take the slope of this. Slope is positive, so it's a positive correlation. Its slope is negative, it's a negative correlation. Slope is 0, that's your R. Okay, delta y by delta x, R. So it's a 0 correlation, means there is no correlation at all. You can see that it's moderately correlated, positive, R is equal to 0.7, R is equal to 0.3, very less correlation, R is equal to 0, no correlation at all. Here two more are there, that is decreasing, okay, negative correlation. So likewise, you can do an analysis. So some questions are there, NAT type, numerical answer type. Okay, I'll read out and quickly I'll go through the questions. I'll not waste the time. If an unbiased coin is tossed 10 times, the probability that all outcomes are same will be dash into 10 power minus 5. You're supposed to answer only this part here. Maybe 1 decimal or 2 decimal. Okay. So if an unbiased coin is tossed 10 times, the probability that all outcomes are same. So there is no question of, there is a question point of unbiased, means probability of success will be same. P will be equal to 0.5. Probability of failure, Q, 1 minus P, 0.5. Since it's a coin, there are only two chances, head or tail, two outcomes. So obviously it is a binomial distribution. All outcomes are same, means how many time you toss, n number of times you toss the coin, how many times you toss it, all the time. That means x will be equal to n. All the time it should be heads. So you calculate ncx, p power x, 1 minus p power n minus x. Okay, so n is equal to x in this case, that is 10. N will be equal to 10 because you are hitting it 10 times, right? So it is 10 C 10, 0.5 power 10, 0.5 power 10 minus 10, n minus x. I substituted. Look at the problem. This is last year's GATE question paper, 2021. This is from 2021 GATE Biotechnology. Okay, this question. Look at the answer here. Do you require calculator up to this point? You can see 10 C 10, 1 is 1. 0.5 power 0, that is 1. You just have to calculate 0.5 power 10. That gives you 97.7 into 10 power minus 5. Remember, it is a fill in the blank type answer. You will be typing in the answer. If you write 97.7 into 10 power minus 5, that is wrong. You are expected to type only 97.7. They might have asked you some decimals of accuracy next to it, 2 decimal, 1 decimal. That many decimal only you have to write. Your calculator may give you any number of decimals, but you have to round it up to how much ever it is asked. Okay, 97.1 decimal means 97.7. Only that will be your entering value that you are entering. So do not enter anything extra beyond what is asked. Okay, that's important. Check the decimal place of accuracy, that is asked. So this is the key thing that I wanted to show you in this another question. This question also it has appeared in the GATE 2021. So the question is this. Look at the question, looks very complicated. Okay, for a time. Answer you'll see it's very simple. Three balls colored in blue, green, and red. Three colors are there. Blue, green, red color. Three balls are there. They are successively transferred from box A to box B one by one. Successively means one after the other. Okay, the order of transfer is this: blue, green, red. This is the sequence in which it is transferred. They could have transferred in any order, but they have transferred in this particular order only. The probability of reverse transfer, you have to transfer from box B to box A now. Okay, balls to the box A in the same order. Okay, same order means it could be blue, green, red, they mean, or red, green, blue, whatever it is, one particular sequence. You have to follow it backward. So you don't have to break your head whether it is blue, green, red, or red, green, blue. It is just one sequence you have to follow in the backward. Okay, rounded off to 2 decimal places they have asked. So how many balls are there? Three balls are there. Three different colors. So what is the possibility of forward transfer? Let us analyze that. There are totally 6 possibilities sequence. Let us say first I will transfer blue only blue color ball I'll transfer. I have two sub options now: blue, green, red, blue, green, red, or blue, red, green. I could have transferred this way. Very similar to another one. I'll first transfer red only. I have red, green, blue, or red, blue, green. Or I could have transferred it green first. All different possibilities. You can call it as probability chances, right? First green, blue and red next. So I could do blue, red, or red, blue, any order. So totally 6 possibilities were there, but I transferred in one particular order only. That is 1 in 6. I made a chance of 1 in 6. 1 in 6 is 0.1667. They asked you to 2 decimal. So the answer is 0.17. So the answer for this is 0.17. If you look at the GATE answer key, they have written as 0.16 to 1.18 because they know even though it is asked 1 point, round it to the 2 decimal, there are students who may write 0.166. If their automated evaluation scheme is expecting 0.17 only, then some people would write 0.166. That is also correct. But according to their evaluation software, it may consider it as 0. Okay, by chance, but still answer is correct. They will start getting the queries from student, request from student that to correct it. Okay, for that reason they have given range 0.16 to 0.18. Their software considers all values starting from 0.16 up to 0.18. In this range, whatever is your answer, it will consider. Okay, so you just have to look at the GATE answer key once it is released. So if your answer is within this range, you don't have to bother whether you have written 3 decimal, 2 decimal, or anything. If it falls within this, your answer is correct. It will be counted. Okay, most important when you come to NAT is there is no negative marking. There may be 1 mark or 2 mark question, but there is no negative marking. Do not forget to attempt all NAT type question, whether it is right or wrong, whether your answer is correct or wrong. You don't have to bother. If only thing is, before you enter the answer, ensure that you know it properly. The way you understand, you solve it and answer it. But do not leave any of the NAT question. Just attempt it. Okay. There is a high chance that you could get a mark if what you write is correct. Okay, this is the last question, I believe, under NAT. So it is on correlation. If the values of two random variables x and y, that is 121, 360, same order, okay? X is equal to 121, y is equal to 360. Another is 240 to 364, 363, 362. So 3 sets of values are there. The value of correlation coefficient between x and y rounded off to 1 decimal place is how much? What is the value of R that is asked? The value of R is asked. I think this is from last year's question paper again. Mostly this is last year's or previous year, I don't remember, but this is related to correlation coefficient. If you look at it carefully, again the same point I'll take it. Looks complicated, that it requires calculation. Our equation is there, that is a sigma xy, sigma x square, sigma y square, so many things are there, right? So let us look at the solution, how it is done. First, list the values of x and y corresponding. 121, 360, 242, 364, 363, 362. Correct, no? Yeah, 363, 362. Okay, the values I listed. I need the mean of it, x bar. Okay, if you want to calculate the average of it, you do not require a calculator to do the averaging. Why? If you just observe it, 121 into 2 is 242. 121 into 3 is 363, right? So 242 is exactly in the middle. So 242 is the mean. That's just you want. You do not require a calculator to calculate the average over here. Similarly, 360, 362, 364. These are all single line. I mean, in a very close values. So if you observe it carefully, 362 is the mean. You don't have to calculate this again. 362 is the mean. Next part is x minus x bar. Difference you have to calculate. Mean is 242. Your individual values 121, 242, 363. From each value, you have to deduct 242 and write it as capital X. So this is in between, right? 242. 121 minus 242 is 121 only, but negative sign, negative symbol, right? 242 minus 242 is 0. 363 minus 242. Again, you do not require a calculator for this. The value is 121. One of them is 0, important. Then 362 is the mean here. You can deduct it easily. 360 minus 362, 364 minus 362, 362 minus 362. This difference you can calculate, minus 2 plus 2, 0. Again, note one of them is 0. Now you have to calculate x square, y square, xy based on these xy values. Do not start calculating use your calculator and start calculating 121 square. How much? You may go wrong later. Simply keep it as 121 square. If you observe it here, again 121 square is coming, same number, and one of them is 0. You need to sum it up, sigma x square. What you will do? There are 121 square, 121 square. You are adding it up, right? So it is 2 times 121 square. I'll keep it as it is. Given here, I am not multiplying it. And y square. Here I am multiplying because it's a small number. The reason is this. When there is a big number, you will go wrong in decimals or some places. For small numbers, no problem. So minus 2 square, 4. Plus 2 square, 4. 0, 0. Sum 8. Multiplication 121 into 2, it's plus 242, remaining all 0, 242. See here, you do not require a calculator to end up with this table. No calculator used in calculating this table. Okay, then r is equal to this equation, sigma xy, that is 242 divided by square root of 2 into 121 square into 8. 121 square I can see here, and I can see a square root. So can I take it out now? Square root of 121 square is 121. 242 divided by 121 is 2. This value 242 divided by 121 is 2. I written here. And inside square root of 2 into 8, 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 2 by 4. Answer is 0.5. Again, to calculate all of this, I do not require a calculator. So without using a calculator, simply on a paper, I can do this and solve it. And this is 2-mark question. Okay. So this is what even earlier also have made a mention that carefully, whenever you solve the problems, you have to make it carefully. That is, understand the requirement. If there is a numerical, this kind of thing, there is a simple solution. It's not that you will get big numbers. You have to use a calculator all the time. Okay. With this cancelling out effect, it will solve out. Yeah, that's it from my side for probability and statistics. If you have any queries, you can ask. And some students had asked to attend, and I think all are not here. All those. I'll have to talk to them in a separate session. Correct. Yeah, any queries from anyone on statistics, probability? Okay, fine. What we'll do is, I had told in the another group, that is group B, who are collecting the questions. I'll send a mail and I'll discuss with you people tomorrow. All right, or in the group itself, WhatsApp group itself. I'll send you the details because I don't see everyone here. Many missing. So even if I explain, it will be half done, and remaining people again I have to start explaining. So I want it in a single session to be explained. Fine. Yes, all of you can exit now. Thank you.